Hello and welcome back to Visiting Dugout, a Fans First Sports Network production. I'm Chrystal O'Keefe. Today I've got Britt. She's back to chat about the Giants. Hello and welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
Good. If you don't mind, just a little reintroduction. It's been a while since we've seen the Giants.
It has. So I most recently, you may have seen me at Willets Pen. We're figuring out what the next steps there are. So I've mostly just been on Blue Sky, yelling periodically about the life of the world at large, unfortunately, and sports, which is a nice little distraction. So there you go.
Yeah, no, that's all we can do to stay sane. I just yell about sports
Yeah,
on Blue Sky.
yeah, exactly.
So there's Willow. She's not going to be good. She's also yelling about sports on Blue Sky. So what's new with the Giants these days?
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but they did trade for Rafael Devers. May have made some headlines recently.
As someone who co-hosts a podcast with a Red Sox fan, that was all we discussed on Sunday. That was our show.
Yeah, it was. That definitely came out of nowhere. So that's a kind of, I don't want to say taking up all the air in the room because that is sort of a negative connotation, but it has been sort of the talk of everything for the past week. And it's been interesting for all the reasons you can imagine. He seems to be settling in really well, which is great. And as much as I love Kyle Harrison, that I don't care whether the Giants took the contract. That is such an unbelievable steal of a trade.
Yeah.
Like you can make whatever excuses you want about clubhouse fit and blah 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 blah. It's like you guys screwed this up. Like your absolute inability to communicate clearly is why you're in this mess. So don't try and act like it's somebody else's fault for he wasn't a team player or whatever. It's like you didn't give him any reason to be.
I also love that he came in. He was like, "Yeah, I'll play whatever base you want. Go
Right. He's like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. I'm cool. Everything's cool. And it's like, yeah, because he showed up and they had a conversation with him and we're like, hey, this is what we would like to do. We'll give you some time to get reps at first, take ground balls and feel like you're prepared. We're not going to just throw you out there and, risk you feeling uncomfortable, you embarrassing yourself or whatever. But like we would like to have that option. So like, put some work in and figure out how to get to that spot. And I think, all it really proved is like that was all he wanted. Like, just don't make me responsible for your lack of planning. The Red Sox had the opportunity to have him take ground balls during spring break or during spring training, and sort of give him the set the expectation of like, hey, stay ready. We might want to slot you in here or there, hopefully not very much. We want you to focus on DHing, but keep it as an option. And they were like, no. You're just going to DH. You're just going to DH. That's all we want you to do. And then the second it was inconvenient for them, they changed their mind. It's like, well, yeah, this sort of spiraled in a very predictable way, in a very Red Soxy way.
Oh, yeah. And it's wild that you take someone that talented and just say, you're just going to DH. That I never understood why that was their idea for him. Because again, he's so talented. There's no denying that.
I get that he was not a good defensive third baseman. He wasn't. So fine. And I get that they have Tristan Casas at first, so they're like, oh, we don't really have a spot for him. So like I don't think it's necessarily the best use of his talents, but I think it's like I get their logic, but I think it's just sort of another symptom of like, I'm not sure you guys have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I genuinely don't know what you were thinking because this sort of all played out in, again, a fairly predictable way that you just ignored, seemingly. which again, very Red Soxy. And the more stories that come out about Craig Breslow, the worse that whole situation looks. So, and I do think it's extra funny that Buster Posey's first like big out of nowhere, like, oh, shock the sport trade was absolutely fleecing one of the only other former player GMs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, it's not that former players can't be good at this. It's just that you aren't good at this.
Yeah, I love that for Buster. As someone who is a big Buster Posey girly, I fully approve of him fleecing the Red Sox. And that's no hate to the Red Sox. I'm very indifferent towards them, but yeah, good on Buster. It just makes me really love him even more.
I have to say, like, my one concern when he took this job, he's an incredibly smart guy, and he always had a really off the charts baseball IQ and was very well respected and all this. So I was not worried that he wasn't going to be good at it, particularly because it just sort of seemed like he has just always struck me as the kind of guy who's like, he's not going to do something if he doesn't think he can be good at it.
Right.
Because like he doesn't tolerate mediocrity, right? Like that's sort of been his whole deal. So I was like, okay, if he thinks he can do this, I think he can do this. But there was that little bit of concern of like, is it going to like change his reputation with the fans? Like, is it going to make his relationship with the fans different? Is it, he's going to be subject to different kinds of criticism than he ever was as a player? Like, what happens the first time he trades somebody people like? Like, this is all very, very fraught, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was sort of a really ballsy move on his part to risk that because he's so universally beloved. Like, I think probably if you go to any doggy daycare in the Bay Area,
Busters.
Yeah, there are probably more Busters or Posies than anything. Like a golden retriever named Buster, I think, is like every fourth dog in the greater San Francisco metro area, it feels like. So, that was a big risk for him. So, impressed that he would take that leap, obviously not being sure how it was going to go. And I think, at least so far, it's only been, 7 months, 8 months or whatever since they announced that. But so far, he has sort of handled it all very gracefully. Like DFAing Lamont Wade was not easy. He was very popular. And Buster even said, like, hey, this is a guy I consider a friend. I played with him. Like, this is a unique relationship. So yes, of course, that was a hard decision to make. And that was one of the first criticisms that people had when the hire got announced was like, is he, there are guys that he knows on the team. There are guys that he's played with. There are guys that he, knew from camp as prospects and whatever. Is he going to be able to really like make the hard decisions about those players? And, it feels to me like so far, the first time he had the opportunity to make that hard decision, he did it without, I don't want to say without hesitance, because I'm sure it was a very difficult decision for him. And I'm sure that conversation was not a fun one, but he made the choice that needed to be made. Mm-hmm. And he didn't wait around and let the team slide into some real doldrums and have them really like lose momentum. He made the move and he needed to make the move. So that's been fun. It's a very interesting experience having him still as around as he is and as visible as he is in this very different role. It's very interesting. Obviously, I just like having him around. So anytime he ends up on, pregame or he's on the radio or whatever, like I'm never going to complain about that, but it's just a very interesting relationship. And I think it is interesting how much of an influence it's had on the season. Like, I think it's just so easy to give him credit for the fact that the team feels like it's gelled and they feel like they have an identity. When I think that's been the thing that's missing recently, that the individual pieces were kind of fine. Like they weren't great, but they were fine. but they're just like, there was no there. Like there was no identity. There was no real strong sense of like, this is who we are. This is how we're trying to play. This is what our goals are. Like that was just sort of missing. And you started to feel it come back last year with Bob Melvin that, his leadership is just a lot stronger, I think, than Gabe Kapler's ever was. And so there was definitely a lot more of a sense of that, but it was still missing a little bit. And I think extending Matt Chapman, getting that done last season, signing Willy Adames, Buster showing up and saving the day and having it as, president of baseball operations. I think it really did just kind of all gel as like, okay, now we have a sense of like who we are and what we're trying to do. And there's a sense of like, there's a future there. Like you can actually see them being better after the deadline, being better next season, and that it's sort of trending in the right direction. And, you can look at the farm system and say, oh, Bryce Eldridge is, knocking the cover off the ball in Sacramento. And there's a sort of future of the franchise a little bit that, like, not to put too much pressure on the kid, but he can hit balls hard in a way that not very many people who've been on this team prior to Devers can do. So like, that's really exciting. And it just sort of, the vibe shift has just been really, really remarkable. I will give Willy Adames a lot of credit for that, because even though he hasn't hit at least up to his expectations, I'm sure the energy there is just clearly making a difference. Like people clearly respond to it. I think it's part of why Devers has probably settled in so quickly. Like they immediately were talking about how like they were looking forward to playing with each other and stuff. So it's just been a really interesting couple months.
So from kind of the fan lens, do you think that because Buster has kind of made these ballsy moves and tough decisions that have ultimately led to smart decisions, do you think he's highly viewed in his new role? Just because again, it's so hard to separate. I feel like it would be hard to separate, the Buster that we grew up watching, because he was like an integral part of, coming to age baseball, I think, for probably both of us.
Right.
So do you think, he's still in a very positive light for just Giants fans in general?
I do. I think the initial sort of hesitance about him taking over this role, I think went away pretty quickly, at least from everything I've heard. And, even when he has sort of made difficult decisions, and like not everybody was thrilled that he traded Kyle Harrison in the Devers deal. But also like, I don't think anybody was really like, oh, he's terrible at his job. Like nobody was really like that incensed about it. It was just sort of the normal trade grumbling of like, oh, I don't know if I would have given him up. And it's like, well, and I don't disagree. I love Kyle Harrison. He's a local kid. I saw his first professional start in the minors. So absolutely wish him well. Hope he does great against everyone but the Yankees. And that's not, you don't love giving up a player like that, right? There's still a ton of potential there, even if it hasn't quite all come together yet. But how can you, even if you don't love that part of it, even if you're sort of hesitant about that part of it, or hesitant about how much of the contract got taken on or whatever, can't really fault that deal that much. Like that is the kind of move the Giants fans have been begging for years. Like, do something. Don't just sign another inexpensive old guy. Don't do these year, 2 year, like make good contracts and then let people leave. Like, I mean, I think there's a portion of the fan base, of which I am one. Like, why did you let Kevin Gausman leave? He was, I think, in so many ways a perfect fit for that franchise. Why did you let him leave? That contract that the Blue Jays gave him is not out of bounds. It was market value. Like there was nothing outrageous about that. You just didn't want to give a pitcher a contract more than 2 or 3 years tops. And so like, this is what happens. So all of those sort of moves like signing Chapman and Adames to big contracts, giving Chapman the no trade clause that was the sticking point in getting the extension done in the first place. Giving Adames what is now the franchise record contract. Those are the kinds of things that Farhan Zaidi just would not do.
Right.
Like, was just seemingly allergic to it. Because even when it was like, oh, they're in on whoever, there was always it never worked out for whatever reason. And obviously we never know exactly what the reason is. But the overall vibe was definitely that, like, he would just rather, play Stratomatic with waiver pickups and guys he could get on cheap short-term deals and whatever, than convince ownership to really spend on the players that they needed to spend on and really do what needed to be done to make the team competitive.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a division where you can win 84 games and make the playoffs. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, not when you're with the Dodgers. No,
you might be settling for a wild card regardless. That's fine. But you're not going to get there. Like, you're not going to sneak in because you win a crappy division with a barely above 500 record. Like, this is not that division. So, like, you got to step up. You've at least got to win enough games that you are competitive against the Phillies and the Phillies, Braves, Mets, whichever of them ends up not winning the division. Like, there's just a lot of competition. You cannot count on, again, like a mid to high 80s win total meaning anything. And I'm, unfortunately for them, we've gotten spoiled.
Yeah.
We won 3 in 5 years. Like, people have an appetite for that. And it's hard to train people out of that. And you could see in the crowds that they were drawing the past couple of years, where it's just like the stadium was always a third or half empty, which is just not what was ever true here. And that quickly, they sold out all last week.
Yeah. I mean, last season, the game I was at was absolutely insane. I have never seen that many people in a ballpark.
Yeah, it definitely started to improve last season. Yeah. Again, like, Melvin and Chapman made a big difference, and just sort of, again, kind of the energy was really different. And then this year it has been wildly different. I've gone to a handful of games already this year. And, I always, even when the team's bad, I always go to a handful of games. And it is just such a different energy this year than it has been the past couple of years. And it's just much more the energy you expect. It's the energy that when they were contending and when they were winning championships, that's the energy that was there. And so it's really nice to have that back. It's really nice to see the crowd shots during broadcasts and not see a bunch of empty seats.
Yeah. That's all the White Sox are known for, is their empty stadium.
And really, who can blame people at a certain extent?
So, do you think that the Giants made enough moves in the offseason that, they filled roles that they really needed to fill? And this can even go into, current day. Obviously, this Devers trade was, Father's Day. So do you think that they made enough moves this offseason to where they're going to kind of position themselves in a good spot, even if it's just the wild card? Do you think that they made enough moves to go to postseason?
I don't think they made as many moves as they could have, but I do think they made enough, though. I think between, again, going back to end of last season, making sure Chapman was going to be around, signing Adames, and then the way some of the younger pitchers, especially, and also some of the younger infielders, across the team, really, getting Jung-Hoo Lee back from being injured so much of last season was huge. Elliot Ramos is having another great season, and that's been such a great story over the past couple of years, because he had like a little bit of a hot second where he started to think like, oh, this is this is maybe not ever going to come together, as happens with prospects, right? Where you have those stretches where you're like, this does not look good. And when he really put it all together, like, unbelievable difference. And he's another guy who's he's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
He's fun in the clubhouse. Like he hit a big 2-run double over the weekend yesterday and like did a shimmy on second base. And they asked him during post game, they were like, what was that? He was like, oh, Pat Burrell. He's like, Pat always tells us to shake our titties. This man is on major regional television talking about shaking his titties. Like, how do I not love that? It's so funny. So, I mean, on top of being super talented, he's easy to root for.
Yeah.
Tyler Fitzgerald had been up until he had a rib injury recently that kind of messed him up. So they just optioned him when Verlander came off the paternity list. I think probably just to like let him reset and like get his head clear and sort of get back to it. Casey Schmidt has been doing really well recently. And the guys you expect to do well have mostly done well. So it's like nobody is really, with a couple of exceptions, it's not like anybody is really overwhelmingly outperforming their expectations. And like Adames hasn't hit as well as he wanted to. Mike Yastrzemski started the season very slowly. He's been much better the past couple of weeks, but he had a pretty prolonged slump. But they've sort of managed to time it that those things mostly sort of come in waves so that not everybody is doing terribly at the same time. There was like a week and a half there that was real grim, but they sort of seem to have come out of that, luckily. And more than anything, the pitching has been ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so that covers a lot of offensive sins when you don't have to score 8 runs or whatever to win a game. Like they figured out that like if they score 4, they're probably good.
Gosh, that must
like
be
they probably
nice.
It's like they probably 4 or 5 runs is like the sweet spot. They're like, all right, we're good now. And a lot of that, huge credit to a lot of the younger pitchers, because guys like Hayden Birdsong and Landon Roop, who I think should both be starting this series, I think. They've done spectacularly and have mostly progressed during the season too, which is always nice to see. That I don't think either of them have really come close to hitting their ceiling yet, but they're both doing really well. Robbie Ray, up until the past couple of starts, has had a fantastic season. Logan Webb is Logan Webb. He's going to give you 7 innings probably no matter what. So like hard to fault that. Always nice to have a guy like that. And then we will see what the partially desiccated corpse of Justin Verlander looks like now that he's back from. This is nothing against him. I really like him. I am also in my 40s, so like major respect to him for hanging in there.
Right.
But he's a million years old in baseball years. So, interesting to see sort of how he comes back. He was just coming back from being hurt, and then his new baby was born, so he was then out for a couple of days. So we'll sort of see what that looks like. I think he's probably pitching this weekend as well. Yeah, I
can't imagine, because I mean, Max Scherzer's been hurt already this season. Right. So I look at him and I look at Justin, and Chris Sale is not at their age yet, but like to me, Chris Sale is 9 million years old in baseball years, just because
he's like late 30s, right?
Yeah.
So anything over 35 is ancient.
You're basically dead. So I'm seeing all these guys, and I'm just like, how are we still doing this? Especially pitching. Pitching takes a huge toll on your body.
Especially pitching. Pitching is it's so bad for you. Like it's just, especially at the intensity and the velocity and stuff that guys are doing now. Like Gerrit Cole was on the Yankees broadcast last week, and they asked him, like, do you think that it's just going to be a thing where every pitcher just assumes they're going to have Tommy John at some point? And he was like, gosh, I hope not. But it kind of is going that direction at this point. That like they're just asking their bodies to do something that is so demanding that it's gonna give out at some point. Like at this point, I do think you're kind of getting to the spot where you just hope you don't have to do it more than once.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can avoid doing it in college
Oh.
or like the minors.
Well, that's the thing, there are like high school kids getting it now.
I know. There was somebody, I can't remember who it was now, but there was somebody, there was a college prospect who had Tommy John at like 15. And then he had it again in college. And it's like, bro.
Yeah.
Like, your arm's going to fall off, buddy. Like, that's awful.
It's tough too, because the White Sox during spring training, they lost 6 pitchers to Tommy John.
Oh my God, I remember that. Yeah. That was like, it was contagious. That was really bad, like, couple weeks.
And I mean, right now, this team is full of very young pitchers. And for the most part, they're very good. But and I kind of feel this way with Paul Skenes too, because I watch a lot of his starts. I'm watching these very young, very promising pitchers, but it's almost just like there's like this internal clock of, when's he going to go down? When is it going to happen?
And I think especially with a guy like Skenes, he throws so hard, and it's a pretty max effort delivery when you watch him. Like, there's not a lot of like, oh, he's holding something back. Like, he does not strike me as a guy who's like, oh, he's holding off so that he can throw. He can throw 100 or 101, but he's going to sit 97 and he'll give you 100 in the 6th inning or whatever when he needs to pull out.
Right. Yeah.
He does not strike me as that guy at all. And like on some level, I respect the commitment, I guess. But yeah, you do sort of look at it and go, you can't do this forever. Like, this is going to backfire.
Sustainable.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. You are asking your body to do something that is just a little bit insane, and it's going to give up on you at some point.
Yeah. And again, and I go back to, because late 90s, early 2000s Giants were really my jam. And watching someone like the love of my life, I'm very sorry to my husband, but to the love of my life, Tim Lincecum, watching him be so dominant and then just have a very shortened career because of his dominance.
Yeah.
I hate to see this. And like I said, I just have this like pit in my stomach when I watch certain pitchers, like, like Paul Skenes. I just have this pit in my stomach where, like, it's going to happen. And I don't want you to have a shortened career. I wanted Timmy to play every single day of my life, because baseball is better with Tim Lincecum in it.
Agreed.
And I'm just like, I don't want that same fate for you.
Right. And it's interesting. I mean, I do think on some level, like, Tim would have been better off if he had pulled his arm out.
Yeah.
Like they can fix that. Mm-hmm. Whereas the hip issue, since part of it was congenital and it was just like this really complicated, that was just, they don't really know how to come back from that.
Yeah.
It's sort of like shoulder issues to an extent, where like shoulder issues are also really, really hard. Like, we don't know how to fix those quite as well as we do elbows. At this point, it almost feels like, oh yeah, you're going to tear your UCL and it's fine. Yeah. Like they'll go in and patch it back up. You'll miss a while. But you'll be fine. You'll come back and you'll throw a little bit harder. It'll be great. Which for me, as an elder millennial, that is still like a wild perspective shift, because I am so used to the era when people didn't have Tommy John regularly. Yeah. And when somebody was having it, it was like, when somebody was having it, it was like, oh my God. Like, there was real questions about, like, are they going to be able to come back from this? And like, oh, this is so scary. Like, this could be the end of their career. And now it is this very like, oh, that's a bummer. They're going to miss a year. Mm-hmm. But it's so taken for granted that they're going to come back fine. You just sort of have to, it's a bummer because they miss a bunch of time, but like, you'll see him in a year and it'll be fine. Yeah. And that's just a wild, like, my brain has still not totally processed that.
And it's the same. You and I both love, I mean, I'm not a Yankees fan, sorry, but we both love Gerrit Cole.
Yeah.
Think the world of him. And again, we take him for granted too, because, he's going to bounce back. He'll be fine. He's going to come back and be dominant. Like, that's what you got to tell yourself every single day.
Right. That's how you cope, because otherwise you can spiral really easily.
He's like, he'll be back next year. It's fine.
But I think he's such an interesting example, though, too, because he, up until very, very recently, was so durable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was a guy with the exact kind of, repeatable mechanics, clean mechanics, built like a horse, never like can pull out 100 in the 6th or 7th inning when he needs to. Like it's nothing because he's just hanging out sitting 96, 97 for the rest of the game. Like so smart, constantly tweaking. Like you just sort of, you think of him as somewhat indestructible or like invincible. So when that guy, no, granted, he's not a baby anymore. So like
Right.
he's put a good number of miles on that arm. So like he had a pretty good run before he really needed like significant medical intervention. But it does sort of make you think, to go back to, him saying, oh my gosh, I hope this isn't just a thing that happens to everybody now. You kind of start to think like, well, if it happened to you, yeah, maybe it kind of is.
Yeah.
Because like you're pretty much the best case scenario. Like mechanics wise, physical build wise, he's, very smart and very sort of conscientious about his work and managing his body and stuff. So like if he gets to his mid 30s and it gives out, what hope does anybody else have? Like that's nobody is going to be more durable than that.
Yeah.
Practically, you're like, so that's just going to be what it is.
Well, and then we're gonna spend forever on this, I know it, but like then there's the Jacob deGrom, who was the best pitcher in baseball, and he gets plagued with these injuries, but he's came back and he's been looking perfectly fine. I mean, he's never going to be that vintage Jacob deGrom again, but he looks good. So, and that's all we can hope for someone like Gerrit Cole when he comes back, is not quite vintage, but you're still doing just fine. I'm not going to worry about you going out on the mound and eating these innings and keeping a scoreless game.
Right. Can you get another 5 or 10 years out of this?
Mm-hmm.
One interesting thing that I'm curious to see if it becomes sort of a consistent trend. When he had his Tommy John, he had the UCL graft, but also the internal brace, which my instinct is that's going to become sort of standard practice, because
Giolito just had that too pretty recently.
Did they do both on him?
I think so. Yeah.
It's very interesting, and it makes sense to me because like I know the internal brace is like a slightly newer procedure. So I think it seems to me, and I'm not a doctor, but it seems to me that it's probably very smart to do both at the same time, with this idea that like, hey, we don't want you to have this again, because we know that success rate on first Tommy John is very high, but it gets very quickly much lower when you have to have revisions. So it's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see, especially with younger players, how much do they start doing that? And for guys who have to have Tommy John when they're, 20 or 25, if they start doing the internal brace sort of regularly, are they able to decrease the number of people who need to have it a second time in order to have a career that goes into their late 30s or whatever?
Yeah, so you can be a Justin Verlander and play until you're 47 years old.
Right, exactly.
So, all right, so that we don't spend 5 hours talking about pitching, because that is something I can and will do.
Yeah, no,
I'm able to
easily.
Do so. Although we are going to kind of bring this back up because the Dodgers have obviously lost a ton of pitching, and it's kind of caused their season to go a little haywire. Do you think that the Giants, even if it's just a wild card spot, do you think the Giants can keep up the pace once those Dodgers pitchers do start coming back?
I think a week ago I would have been, or a week and change ago, I would have been way more on the fence about the answer to this. But I think with Devers, and I think sort of with the energy and the momentum they have going right now, and they had a pretty ugly slump for, like a week and a half or 2 weeks, and managed to not lose too much ground.
Mm-hmm.
They're still only, I think, 3.5 games back. So I feel pretty cautiously optimistic, because they've kept themselves in striking distance. They've kept themselves in a good position in the wild card race. I don't delude myself to think that they're going to win the division, and I'm fine with that. because they're sort of ahead of schedule at this point anyway. I don't think anybody expected them to be quite as good as they are this year going into the season. I was looking forward to them being like entertaining,
right,
and reasonably competitive. I wasn't expecting like actually contending.
Like, okay, we can make it to the postseason.
Yeah. So like that's great. But yeah, I mean, I think they can do it. I think they probably need one move at the deadline. And it doesn't need to be another Devers style blockbuster, but they need just like they really need middle infield help probably. I love Tyler Fitzgerald. I love Casey Schmidt. I am perfectly happy with them hanging out at second base if that's what needs to happen. But it's one of the more obvious spots where they can improve, because I don't think there's not a ton of other spots where, unless something happens to somebody, knock wood, there's not a ton of other obvious spots where like, oh, you've got to upgrade there. Especially not depending on over the next, month, how Bryce Eldridge does at AAA, because they went into the season saying, look, we expect that you're going to get to AAA, and we're going, if you do well, getting called up this season is on the table. Like we're open to that possibility. It's entirely up to you and your performance. And he did well at AA. They started him back at AA because he was transitioning some stuff. He'd been hurt. He's done well at AAA. He can hit the ball ridiculously far in a way that is real fun, and is obviously plays great at Oracle. So I think that's a possibility. I think first base is probably the one spot where like maybe they could do something there other than second base. There's some opportunity there. But I also don't feel like, I'm not heartbroken if they don't do anything big. I'll put it that way. Like, yeah. I can see a somewhat under the radar, like a Javier Lopez kind of trade. When they brought Javi in at the deadline in 2010, it was like he was a loogie. Like, whatever, sort of don't think about it a whole lot, right? It's kind of whatever. And he was an absolute linchpin of those bullpens that got those 3 championships. So I think there's definitely a possibility for a move like that maybe is a little bit under the radar, but that ends up really shoring up a spot that was an opportunity. I think those setup innings are a place where it's not a desperate need or anything, but it's a place where they could probably improve a little bit. Just from a consistency perspective, the bullpen's real young for the most part. So you always worry a little bit about relievers, man. They're weird. Like,
yeah.
they turn into pumpkins real fast sometimes. Or they just, Camilo Duvall last season, like he just lost it kind of out of nowhere. And then he's been great this year. Started as the setup guy, won the closer role back pretty quickly. That kind of thing happens with relievers a lot. So I could see them wanting to bring in somebody who's a little bit more of a veteran. But those are all, they're sort of moves on the margins, because I feel like they are actually in a pretty good place right now, especially if the pitching continues to pitch the way they have. It's very much the formula that we got used to in the championship years of they don't have to score a lot of runs. They probably won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to give up a lot of runs. They're going to win a lot of 1-run games, and it's going to be stressful and annoying probably. But they've got a sort of formula with the pitching and defense to do it.
So before we take a break and move on to the actual series, who are your All-Star game picks?
Oh, I try not to be a total homer, but it's really hard. Like, it's really hard. I think there are 2 or 3 that I think I feel the most strongly about. I think Elliot Ramos, if he doesn't go, I think it's a total shame. He's had such a good year, and he's such a good ambassador for the game. He's so much fun. And he was so like giddy to go last year that it's just fun to see. So I really, really hope he makes it again. On the pitching side, there's so many people that I could say that I think are deserving. I think Logan Webb is like the epitome of what you want in consistency. Like just what a rock. And he's had another typical, like he's had a Logan Webb season. It's been great. I think Camilo Duvall, once he settled back in, has been again fantastic. On the American League side, I am a shameless homer for Austin Wells and Ben Rice both. They're just they're delightful. I think the catching position in the American League is kind of weak anyway. Like there's not a lot in really amazingly compelling arguments, and I think he's got as good an argument as anybody, and I think I would be very, very, very happy for him. You know, and Ben Rice too. I don't even know how you get Ben Rice on there because he doesn't really have a position. He's goes back and forth between first base and DH, and I think he's on the ballot as a DH.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know, and he's slumped a little bit the past stretch here. So fair is fair, but a lot of that has been terrible luck too. To give him due credit. But my bias though is just always to see guys who are going to really, really have fun with it, and younger guys who maybe never expected to be an all-star, guys who come out of nowhere. If you're going to do the voting before you even get to July, I think you've got to give credit to the guys who are the good stories.
Oh like,
yeah. I don't need to see every big name star again. Like they've done it. It's fine. Like would I watch and enjoy if Aaron Judge did the home run derby again? Absolutely. Do I want him to? Kind of no, I don't, because I would rather not risk him getting hurt. And he already had one of
Alonso right now.
Right. And he already had one of the coolest home run derby performances ever.
Yeah.
He's already got that under his belt. There's still a broken television in Miami that they just like are leaving up as a like commemorative plaque practically. So, you know, but I always just think that like, yeah, the guys who are unexpected, the guys who are under the radar a little bit, they're the ones that I really want to see make it.
The only exception to my rule was that mic'd up Liam Hendricks coming in to close at the All-Star game a couple years back, and I was like, why you'd put a mic on that man on national TV is beyond me, but I'm thankful for it.
It was not a choice I would make as a producer, but I'm sure glad they did because that was excellent entertainment.
Oh, he is one of the funniest baseball players alive.
Oh, what a gift.
Okay, so we'll take a quick little pause here for a lovely commercial break and be right back to chat about the series. All right. Welcome back. So we are recording a little early, so the probable pitchers aren't up just yet, but you kind of indicated who we might see. I will be at the game Friday because I have to go to at least one of these games that series because I do still have a major soft spot for the Giants. But what can we expect to see pitching wise from the Giants this series?
I think it will end up being, assuming there's an off date in there, so assuming they don't skip anybody or anything, I think it'll end up being Robbie Ray, Hayden Birdsong, and Verlander's next start. I counted it out. I think that's what I ended up with. Like I said, there's an off day in there, so there's like a little opportunity for maybe some funkiness, but that would be my guess. But in any event, assuming Robbie Ray pitches, look to see whether he bounces back. He was having a really, really excellent season. His past couple starts have been rougher. His command has been not there. His last start, I'll give him a little bit of a pass because the wind was blowing straight out on the Saturday, Sunday, whenever that was. And it was warm, like kind of unseasonably for here. So I'll give him a little bit of a pass. There's a little bit of extenuating circumstances, but like beyond that, just the command has not been quite there. So interested to see whether that springs back. Actually, ironically, same with Hayden Birdsong that has been having a really, really, really good season and just, again, was a little off last time. Just didn't have it quite all together. So definitely curious to see how that goes. I think, like I said, the bullpen is really, really the thing to watch in a lot of ways. Camilo Duvall has been excellent. Ryan Walker has been a little all over the place, but better recently. I would highlight two relievers that you may not have heard of: Eric Miller and Randy Rodriguez, both having excellent seasons, both super fun to watch. Guys who, again, sort of flew under the radar a little bit, were slightly surprised inclusions in the bullpen at the sort of level of responsibility that they have. And they're also just they're very close friends. They were, I want to say they were roommates and stuff in the minors together. And they're both just nice boys. So
that takes me back to that Vine sound of, and they were roommates.
Yeah, a little bit. There is an article recently about Randy Rodriguez primarily that like 90% of the quotes were from Eric Miller because Randy Rodriguez like doesn't really want to talk about himself. So it was mostly just Eric Miller talking about how much he likes his friend, which was just adorable. And as always, Tyler Rogers, just a freak. Always a fun sideshow when anybody comes in. That totally submarine. Nobody really does that anymore. So that's just fun. Who throws a pitch that goes up? That's insane.
Who knows? That sounds like a lot of fun. I hope I get to see that in person.
He's a hoot just because, again, it's like, it's so different than any other pitcher just about right now. And it's very funny.
So, and this could go back to a pitcher. This could be, offense or defensive threat. It doesn't matter. But who on the Giants team do you think will be the biggest threat the White Sox will face?
So avoiding the obvious answers, because I think Devers and Ramos are again sort of the obvious choices here. But I would look out for Casey Schmidt. He has had a couple of really fantastic games. He hit 2 grand slams in the series against the Dodgers. One of them, asterisk, one of them was against a position player in a blowout, but still,
fine.
One of them was not.
Yeah.
And also had a couple really fantastic games over the weekend. So look to see whether he continues that. I hope he does, because it hasn't felt fluky and it hasn't felt sort of accidental. Like the quality of the at-bats and the quality of the contact has just really been better. So like he hasn't been getting lucky. So I would really love to see this be for real with him.
So in that kind of same turn, what are the keys for the Giants to take this away? And I know this is a silly question since they're playing the White Sox and the White Sox are bad, but I always ask, what are the keys for this team to take the series?
I mean, look, as well as the Giants have been doing, they did lose a game to the Rockies.
Yeah.
So like, don't take it for granted. I mean, this is sort of the obvious answer, but just catch the ball. Like, play a clean game. Do not give the other team extra outs, because, again, offensively, they're not going to blow you out of the water. They're not going to score a million runs. So they need to play cleanly and protect the lead when they get it. Avoid giving teams additional opportunities. I think when we've seen them play well, it's been because they played really clean defense, and because they pitched well. And the pitching is a little bit less of a question mark. Like, I expect that to be good. the defense has gotten a little wonky a handful of times this year. So I think that's the big thing for them. It's just like, don't give away extra outs.
So transitioning obviously into the kind of next question, like what are the fears heading into this series? Is it just wonky bad defense that's going to lose these games for them, or is there something else that you might be a little concerned about?
I mean, wonky defense is always top of my list of like, please don't do that. Not only because it is bad for your chances of winning, but it's also just infuriating to watch.
Yes, yes.
So just as somebody on the couch with the game on, like I hate it. The only other thing would be, again, sort of the question mark of with Robbie Ray and Hayden Burnsong specifically, and Lyndon Roop a little bit. If he pitches, I wish I could remember exactly how the rotation is working out. But Robbie Ray and Hayden Burnsong both did not have great starts their last time out. Robbie Ray, it's been a couple of not great ones in a row. So that is the only other thing that I can see. It's like being a little bit of a danger zone of if they don't sort of come back into form a little bit. The offense doesn't typically give them enough of a cushion to sort of compensate for a real bad start. Like the bullpen is good enough, luckily, that you can sort of get around it, but there's not a lot of wiggle room there.
Yeah, don't worry. As I look into the corner of my screen on every so often, I see that it's 8-0 Diamondbacks.
Oh, no.
Because our starter, Shane Smith, had a very bad start.
Oh,
His last
no.
start was very bad. So they were just talking him up before the game on the broadcast. They're like, could our Rule 5 draft also be our all-star pick? And I'm like, this is going to jinx them. And then boom, turned into a pumpkin.
Yeah. Broadcaster's jinx is undefeated.
It's just so bad. So bad. So before I let you go, kind of moving away from just our teams, this is where I love to gather like hot takes or just kind of what you're seeing in Major League Baseball, what you're enjoying, what you're hating, just whatever. This is your open-ended forum of what's going on in baseball and in Britt's world.
Yeah. Well, just for starters, my God, Colorado Rockies. Look, I understand that there's been plenty of headlines about how bad they are, and just terrifyingly, they've been better recently.
Yeah.
But better is like really a relative term in this case. But yeah, if you don't watch a lot of NL West baseball, I'm not sure you fully appreciate just how unspeakably terrible they are. It's almost fascinating to watch because there was one moment in I can't remember if it was the last Giant series in Colorado or if it was when the Yankees were in Colorado. I can't remember which it was, but there was this moment where they were like doing okay. Like they were in the game. They may have even been leading and really like they were fine, right? They weren't overly impressing anyone, but they were like hanging in there. And then there was like a walk and an error. And I swear to God, you could see them realize what was going to happen. Like you could see it on their faces where they went, oh, yeah. I know how this is going to go. And then it went exactly how you thought it was good. Like it spiraled out of control at that point. And it was truly fascinating. Like watching them, it was very much that seeing someone like have their life flash before their eyes where you just like you watch the realization occur and then see everything happen exactly as they were fearing.
It's like Alexa Play Exile by Taylor Swift.
Yeah. It's just it's real bad. My other sort of, I don't know if it's a hot take, but moderate take is I don't know what's happening with the Orioles.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on over there. I'm glad that they've been playing better recently. It's a huge bummer that Adley Rutschman is hurt, obviously. But that whole scenario this season has just been fascinating because I can't remember the last time I saw an entire team forget how to hit simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was just an absolutely insane start to the season that I don't think anybody could have really predicted. Like, I think we all knew, wow, you really needed to sign some pitchers and you did not. So them losing because of that would not have been surprising, but it's the fact that also they just like everybody forgot how to hit suddenly.
And then Calvin was out for a bit, which was a big blow.
But just a baffling series of events, and a great reminder of the old adage about you can't win the division in April, but you sure can lose it. Because I mean, again, they've been playing well recently, and if they'd been playing like this from the beginning of the season, they'd be in perfectly good shape. But they dug themselves such a hole the first 2 months that I just don't think there's any coming out of it.
Yeah, missing Adley too is a big bummer because I know the two of us both adore Adley too. We have very similar taste in our baseball men that we've discovered over the last few years of casting together. That was a huge blow. And this funny little side story, I went to New York in May, and I went to, the flagship MLB store. And the entire time I'm there, I'm just thinking about the Adley Rutschman video of him at the flagship store to work there. And so then it also brought me into I was telling my husband about this whole thing because I probably sent him a video and he probably ignored it because I don't blame him.
Right.
He's not an Orioles fan, but this whole time I'm like thinking about this Adley video in my head, and then it goes back to the I think you should leave workout video.
Yes.
And now I'm just thinking like I know Tim Robinson just put out a new movie, but he needs to put out a new season of something. I think you should leave Detroiters. I don't care. Adley needs something to keep him sane right now.
Yeah, he's laid up with that poor oblique. So like you gotta give him something to watch and quote embarrassingly.
Tim, if you're listening,
do a guy a favor.
We do that. We also do that with my dog all the time because she has like this bone, and she doesn't like to chew them up. She just likes to carry them in her mouth. So I always just think of that one, the crooner.
Yes.
We have so many pictures of her with like her bone just like hanging out of the side of her mouth, and we'll call her the crooner. And then she'll like hide her bones too. We were just talking about this the other day. She'll like hide her bones too. And my husband was like, "Oh, it reminds me of how they're always trying to steal like the stickers off of his car." I am so sorry if you do not watch I think you should leave. That's a personal flaw on you, listeners.
Yeah, you should go do that.
But you should, clearly watch it. But we always think of like our dog as the crooner. And I was like, Adley just needs this entertainment right now.
Yeah, that is so funny.
Poor guy. Oh, well, that's what I've got for you. I knew this would take a silly, goofy turn with you, and I love it so much. I needed it instead of watching this bad baseball game. Please just remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, at the moment, you can find me at Britt H at Blue Sky. And stay tuned for what's next.
We love it, yes, because Willets Pen is constantly in a reinventing the wheel type thing.
It's always in a state of flux a little bit, yeah.
Colleen, we have our Dugout of History podcast, and that's been like the constant. Otherwise, we're always reinventing the wheel over there.
You two are the only ones who can manage to like keep it together consistently. The rest of us are like very ADHD about the whole thing.
Jesse, we love you, but you're a hot mess. Yeah, so yes, stay tuned for that because we are a bunch of weird people over there that just care too much about sports.
It's true.
All right, well, thank you so much. It is always a blast talking to you. Best of luck in this series. I'll be there also clapping if the Giants do good things on Friday.
Well, I hope you have fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Bye.